Gruntworks Nation, the Big Earl is always asking, why is China hoarding food? Experts say that China is hoarding a massive amount of food. They will soon have over two-thirds of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and over half of its wheat. But when asked about it, China lies. One China expert says they, of course, will never admit to something like that. Well, what does China know that we don't? When it comes to global food shortages, China is the canary in the coal mine. You see, China is the world's number one food importer. They rely on the rest of the world to keep their people fed. So they can't afford to mess up, or there will be riots, civil panic, or even worse, when over a billion people can't eat. What does this mean for Americans like you and me? Two words: food shortages. That's why it's a smart idea to stock up on a kit of best selling Four Patriots survival food. Create your own stockpile of the best selling Four Patriots survival food kits, hand packed in the USA. The kits are compact and stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. And their 5-star reviews on the website rave about the flavor and the taste. Right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase of Four Patriots survival food by typing in the code VTTGW at checkout. Just go to 4patriots.com and use the code VTTGW to get 10% off your first purchase of Four Patriots survival food. That's 4patriots.com. Use the code VTTGW.
Hey, what's up, Mental Health Nation? I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in. As you can see, I'm by myself. Lynn may sign in earlier. She got busy at work. Shoot me a text, so she may sign in on her phone when she can. But I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. I hope your week's going good. And right before I jump into everything, just remember that, my podcast now is on Reads Across America Radio. And it's super easy to find. You just download your favorite app that you listen to music on, whether it's iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, or TuneIn app. Search for Reach Across America Radio, and you find all the great programming along with mine. My podcast is shown at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. The podcast this Friday, or the radio program this Friday on Reach Across America Radio, it's actually going to be a podcast that I did in for Veterans Day. Recording. So it's not going to be this one. It's going to be one that was already recorded. I did that with some friends of mine when I was in Missouri to kind of talk about my experiences and what does Veterans Day mean to me. If you read about the show today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, because I think for people outside of the veteran community, I think they're a little confused by that sometimes. You wouldn't think nowadays it would be, but sometimes they are. Also, if you see the QR code up there on the left-hand side, that is for Reads Across America Radio. December is getting around here very quickly. You can click on that. You can donate to Reads Across America. Reads Across America. They put the wreaths on the veterans' tombstone that has passed away. It's a very great program. I'm very honored to be part of that with them replaying my podcast. But it's something very important to do. And so if you can spare $5, please click on that link and donate to ensure that every veteran all across the United States does have that wreath on their tombstone. But you can also donate to your local area but you can also just know that my area is Arlington Cemetery area. So if you donate using that QR code, that's where it's going to go. Just like before, my Mental Health Warrior book is out. I have limited supplies. Once I go to Italy in December, you won't be able to get any more signed copies. However, they will be available on Amplify, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your great reading. The Mental Health Warrior book makes a great stocking stuffer. It's coming up soon. Get that copy. But if you want that signed copy, I want to thanks to everybody out there who has signed and received and got those signed copies. I'm truly thankful for all of you. Four Patriots now is sponsoring VTT. That's really great and awesome. Winter's coming. And you never know when that natural disaster is going to hit. And so it's very important to always be prepared, right? They taught us in the military. I got to move my microphone out of the way. It's driving me crazy. Always be prepared and always be ready. Growing up in the Midwest, we never knew what the weather was going to be like. We had tornadoes, thunderstorms, ice storms, whatever. But it's always good to have at least 90 days of food supply around. And I've said that my whole entire life. It's a great company. Glad to be part of them. So please support them. And if you need that, and if you don't have that, I would definitely look into it. Before we dive into today's show, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. And I'm going to get just a little bit political. I'm not a overly political person. I have my own political beliefs. I've been an independent person my whole entire life. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I always vote for the best candidate, and that best candidate I come up with based on my own decision or what I, look at what that candidate does and does it better reflect me. I think more people probably should do that instead of just voting on emotions. But, here's the thing. With everything going on in the world today, we as Americans really just need to stop the fighting and the bickering. It is really getting, I think, for a lot of people, just overly exhausting and just wears on you both mentally and physically with all the turmoil going on. And so, if I could have just one wish this Veterans Day on Saturday, I just wish that people could learn to put the difference aside, learn to be, happy to live in this country, learn, happy to be Americans. And it's okay to have disagreements and arguments and things like that. Um, that's just part of, my older brother and I, we have completely two different views. And, we sat down and hey, Brian, what's going on? We sat down and had a long conversation and, I saw his point of view and he saw my point of view and we argued and yelled at each other. And then we went to go run. It's fine. We need to have adult conversations about things. And I just think that's important. But I'm just going to say that out of the way. Sometimes elections go what you want, sometimes they don't. But you should always be involved in the process. I went and voted yesterday here in Virginia. See, I got my sticker right here. I posted it because I think that's very important as my duty is not only as a veteran, but also as an American citizen to do my part and to go out and vote. And I think everybody should do that. Whomever you vote for, it doesn't really matter to me. But it's just important to be part of the process and educate yourself on those candidates that you're voting for and just make sure they reflect what you reflect. And I just think that's very important. But hey, today's show, I'm going to talk about, Veterans Day. What does that mean? That used to be Armistice Day. And then I think Roosevelt changed that to Veterans Day to kind of celebrate all veterans who have served in the service. And then kind of talk a little bit about Memorial Day. Because I think, for some civilians out there, people not related to the military, they get a little confused by that. And they don't mean any harm by that. But, it's just like, people say, oh, happy Veterans Day. And then they say happy Memorial Day, right? And for some, a lot of veterans, especially Memorial Day, that can be a trigger because, it's just like it says, it's Memorial Day. You are thinking about friends, family, loved ones who has served and who is no longer here. And so I think, for us, it's just, it's an education process, right? And sometimes, you just need to take that little extra step and explain to them the difference. Have a talk about it, chit chat. And it's interesting because I talked about this as the podcast is going to play on Friday. Is as a veteran, and of course, Veterans Day, people are very appreciative. They want to buy you coffee, they want to buy you drinks. And one of the ladies, we were talking about this, and she goes, well, sometimes they don't say anything, or they have a different look on their face, or I don't know if they're appreciative. I don't know if I embarrassed them. And I think, for me and for a lot of veterans, I think you're very appreciative that, somebody would take the time to, buy you a meal, get your, a cup of coffee or whatever it is. But, I think for some, they just don't know how to react to that, right? And so I don't think they mean it in a mean way. I just think that they just maybe show it a little bit differently. And for a lot of veterans out there who are hurting, who have, PTSD issues and mental health issues, that can even make it a little harder on them because now, I'm a serve for some veterans out there that really Veterans Day to them is just as meaningful as Memorial Day, because they're thinking about their buddies and friends and maybe they had lost them and now, you're shining a highlight. And so, just say that if you go out and you do something, and to help, to buy somebody dinner or their coffee or whatever and say, hey, thanks, for your service to this country and what you do. If you don't get the feedback that you think you should do that, then don't worry about it. It's okay. I know deep down they're probably very appreciative. And sometimes people are embarrassed by that. When somebody go out and have that act of kindness, because we don't serve we don't serve for that. We serve solely because of our duty to our nation, and to get something back in return, we're not expecting that. And I think for a lot of veterans, it could, maybe, put them off maybe a little bit, or maybe take them by surprise. I think with all the wars that were going on, and hope to God we don't get into another one, but I think, for a lot of veterans, they've become more used to that, before, the global war on terrorism and OIF and OEF. I think now that so many Americans had said thank you to veterans, and did things for them on Veterans Day and or Memorial Day, shine a bigger light on it. So I think it's out there. I think it's changed a little bit than what it was 20 years ago, for the better. I think it's important. I think that for the population out there that doesn't understand the military, I think it's important for them to understand what a person goes through when they serve in the service. It's not easy. It's hard. It's stressful. Whether you serve 2 years, 4 years, or 34 years like I do, it takes a toll on you, both physically and mentally. I've talked to a lot of people who like, well, I never, went to war, did this. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. You served. The fact that you were in the military and that you went to the training and did things, it does have an effect on you. And doesn't mean it's always a negative effect, but it does have an effect on you. It does change you. And I'm sure you guys understand this, right? So you go back home. When I went to basic training, I was 17. So I went in between my junior and senior year at high school, went to basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, and then I came back home and I went to AIT after I graduated high school. But when I came back from basic training to start football practice and then start, back to school, people noticed a difference in me when I came back from basic training. And they noticed that, I was in very good shape, but I was in better shape. But, they just noticed that I acted differently. To me, I didn't think I act differently, but they saw that I was acting differently. And I think it's just because of the nature of the training that you're doing, it changes you, and people notice that difference in you. I mean, this as well as I do, that I can walk into a room and I can pretty much guess within 10 seconds who's a veteran, who's not in that room, mostly just by how they're acting or their mannerisms or the way they look. Not that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying we just know that. And when you are out in a public arena or whatever, and you're visiting, you can very quickly see a veteran, visit with a veteran. Me as a veteran myself, I have a tendency to talk to people a lot and have that conversation because I think it's important. I was at a local pub here the other day and was just talking to some people around there, and about mental health and other things. And it's just you just never know when you walk into a conversation randomly and how that's going to affect somebody. Just like on Veterans Day, if you buy somebody a cup of coffee or buy them a meal and stuff, and they never, you may just change their whole outlook. You may just make their day a little bit better just by doing that. The random act of kindness. The Black Bear Diner had that going on for a while, where they had a promotion where they just randomly did kind things to people that followed them on social media. And I thought that was really great, because, sometimes I will go out, and you don't necessarily have to be a veteran or something, but I'll randomly buy somebody's dinner at a restaurant, or, if it's a family, you can kind of tell that it's a birthday, but they were kind of, you can always tell when somebody's struggling. I'll very quietly pay for the meal walking out, and they never know it was me that paid for the meal. And I do that. For one, it makes me feel good about myself, and two, maybe it just makes their day a little bit better. And in the end run, that's all we can do, right? We can just try to help each other and just make things a little bit better. But, hey, drop in the comments what you plan on doing this weekend for Veterans Day. I have a big car show coming up in Virginia Beach next weekend. So I want to be working on the Mustang next couple of days to get it ready. Not that it's ever very dirty, but this is an inside 3-day car show. And so I'm going to take the Mustang down to my buddy's house on Saturday down in Yorktown. And then we're going to work on his car to get it ready for the show. And then we'll put him in his trailer, and then we'll take him down to Virginia Beach, because I'm not driving my car to Virginia Beach. That traffic down there is too crazy. And so I'm not going to subject my Mustang to that. So I'm very thankful that he's going to let me use his car trailer to get it down there. We're going to put both of his cars in there. So it's going to be a good show. It's going to be a fun weekend that weekend. Also, I'm pretty excited going down to Hampton, Sydney on the 15th next week, next Wednesday. There won't be a podcast, but I'm going down there for got a speaking event and book signing there at the college, the university. They've been having some issues with some students there. It's a stressful time for them, so I'm gonna go down and tell my story of hope and just have a good night. I think they're gonna be serving free pizza. So if you're in the Farmville area or out in Virginia on that day, hey, come out and join me. It's gonna be a fun event. It's just a way to give back to the community. It's very important. But one thing I've been doing this week, so I started back to running. I hadn't been running. I've been really focused on yoga. And so this week, I got my little trail that I run here all the time. But I've been doing hiking this week. So every day this week I've gone on a hike. A 2-mile hike, 3-mile hike. Here in Virginia, it's very nice right now this time of the year. And the weather here has been great. It's been nice and warm. But, I said this in one of Mental Health Minute is, with the days getting shorter, it's very important to, get out and get that sunlight when you can. Because you just never know. It's kind of depressing this time of year. I mean, it's going on, almost 5 o'clock now, and it's starting to get dark. I always hate that about this time of the year. But it's very bad. So, hey, what are you guys doing? What's going on? There was something I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to try to talk about it here in a minute. Get a drink of my coffee. So I had a very interesting, I don't know if it was really interesting. I don't know if I want to talk about that or not. What the hell. So I've been having a lot of, I'm going to get deep here for a second. So, I went home in Missouri a couple of weeks ago and was back home, and I've been talking a lot with the with the Brady United and with gun control and things like that, but not gun control in what they really talk about. I talked about it in a different manner as putting that lock on that gun, that special gun that you have. That if you're not in the right mindset, what would you do? But for me this time of the year, because we're getting into close to Christmas, and my suicide attempt was on December, is I start looking at things a little bit differently. And I was been thinking a lot about my life and how I went down that road and how I got there, and really what I've been doing since then, with of course this podcast and the book and other stuff. And I think this time of year is just hard for everybody. But I was wondering, why does it seem to be harder this year than others? And I don't know why it is. I got the mental health kick app, the ear kick app that I use. And maybe I'll look back next year and look at the weather pattern or something. But the weather's been nice. So I don't know. Has anybody else just been feeling off? I've just been feeling off this month. I just can't quite put my finger on it. It's just my anxiety level on some days kind of gets higher than it normally does. And some days I just don't have a lot of energy to do stuff, but I force myself to still go and do it. But I think, I've had a lot of reflection here about, why I went down the road that I went down with my suicide attempt. And I talk about that. But in Missouri, and I was doing the podcast, and I was, visiting and thinking, and I'm reflecting a lot about why I got to that point. But really, I was thinking about why I never asked for help. I don't understand that about. I don't understand why I didn't do that. I don't know if I was just thinking about it. I don't think I was thinking that I was weak by not asking for help. I don't know why I didn't. And that kind of bothers me some, because, I'm doing this podcast and I tell people, hey, don't be like me, ask for help if you're having issues and problems. But I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask anything of anybody. I just wrote a note and took a bunch of sleeping pills and woke up in the hospital. And so I guess the point of what I was thinking about all this is if you're in that moment, right? And obviously I understand that moment because I'm talking about it, where you're just not in a good way mentally. And I say, hey, pick up the phone and call somebody. Well, I know that's not easy to do because I obviously didn't do it. I would do that now. Of course, you can text 988 or you can text, home to 741 and speak to a crisis counselor. Um, but I don't know why I didn't do that then. I don't know if I was embarrassed. I don't know if I was having a hard time processing. Maybe it was the alcohol. I don't know. Maybe that was the reason why I didn't ask for help. I was just suffering in silence. And to suffer in silence is it's horrible. It's terrible. I mean, that's why Veterans Trash Talk started, and we talk about it all the time. Hey, if you're having issues or problems, to get your demons out and go and talk to somebody, or go rant on Facebook. On the Facebook page you can join, or you can rant on mine, and I'll answer you back. I've met so many random people on social media because they just put a post out there that was just not right. And I reach out to them and say random and say, hey, you doing okay? Is everything all right? You can always text this, if somebody acts like they're in crisis, I always say, hey, you can, obviously call 988 or text. But I just really, I think for me, I think I was embarrassed. I've really been thinking, I know it sounds kind of silly and I'm kind of rambling on, but it's hard for me to talk about this. But for whatever reason, I just thought it was important to talk about. But I think for me, first of all, I wasn't accepting of what was going on with me. So I wasn't accepting the fact that I had PTSD, or I was dealing with the guilt of, that Finding Bay Alive, and that story's, obviously in my book, pretty detailed. Maybe it's the book that's really brought back a lot of these memories too. I didn't think about that till now. But I think I was embarrassed. I think that's why I didn't call for help. Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I just wanted everything to stop. I talk about that. It's just, I was getting, pressure from work, and I was getting pressure from, obviously the military, pressure from my family, not sleeping, right. I don't know, maybe it was the medication I was on that was caused part of it. I don't know. But then I was thinking, who would I have called? And I couldn't come up with a name. And I was thinking about that time and who I knew, and I wasn't big on Facebook or anything like that, and so you lose contact with your friends and stuff, and I don't. Maybe I would have called my older brother, the one that found me, but I don't know. I don't know who I would have called. And so the reason I say that is I made it a point to put in my notes on my phone of a list of people, if I'm ever in that state again, to call. I didn't have that before, but I put it in my notes in my phone. And so before you get to the point where you're not thinking clearly, if you're in a bad way or whatever, make a mental note or put a note in your phone or something of somebody, if you're in that moment, like I was, on who you would call. Or maybe put it on your favorites on your phone or something. Because, that may not be somebody that you talk to every day. I know through Veterans Trash Talk Facebook page and we've had a lot of veterans reach out, and of course we're all very good at monitoring that, and somebody's on that page 24/7 to try to help. But that might be a good tip. Especially moving into the holiday season, it's tough for everybody at Thanksgiving coming and then Christmas. But really think about, if you're in that moment of crisis, or you're in that moment of not in a good place, who would you call? And put them in your phone. Put that number in your phone. Because you got the VA crisis line. Absolutely, you can always call them. But I'm talking about somebody you personally know. Who would that person be? Or if you just, let's say you wasn't, suicidal or anything, you're just having a really bad, messed up week and you needed to talk to somebody, who would be that person that you would call? Um, but I was thinking back then, who would I have called? I don't know of anybody I would have called. That's kind of sad. I mean, now I would have called people. Of course, I'd call the VA crisis line or 988 or whatever. But I'm thinking back then, who would I would have called? I don't, I don't know. Anyway, because of me thinking about that, I was thinking, well, maybe I should know that person now, or at least have their name written down. It's not, to me, it sounds it's not really silly, but maybe somebody thinks it's silly. But so at least if I'm in that moment or not quite in my right mind of thinking, that I can have easily access to that number. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jonathan. I think that's very important to always have that group of friends. I got to put my glasses on to read, but yeah, Jonathan, yeah. And maybe it could have been somebody that I served with. Maybe back then I would have called. I don't know. So, I mean, we all go through bad things at point in times in our life. You never know when it's going to occur. Work can change of the seasons, a lot of things coming up for us left and right. Um, you know, it. Thanks for sharing that, Brian. That was kind of moving what you said. But yeah, so just know it's okay, and try to come up with a list of maybe people that you will call. Maybe it could be a priest, maybe a chaplain or somebody you served with. I would just say just take a moment to think about it, because that way you have it readily available, and maybe you could reach out to them. But I know it's easy to talk about. I can sit here and talk about it. I know now I would call, and I would probably call before I got to the point that I was at that point. And I hope, Brian, you would agree too that probably you would call somebody also if you got to that point again. Um, but yeah, I think think about that for a minute. Think about who you would call if you had their number. If it's not somebody you always talk to a lot, because that could be the person. I mean, it may not be somebody you talk to every single day. It might just be somebody um, that you had that you served with or were in the military with, and make sure that you have their number and able to get a hold of them. And so that way, if you're in that moment or in that crisis and you call them, and maybe you call them and talk to them and say, hey, look, I know we haven't talked for a while, but hey, I just want to let you know that, if something ever happens or if I'm off in a bad way, that I just want to let you know that you're probably going to be the person I'm going to call because, I just have that trust in you, and I just have that, and maybe let them know that, because that might be something good to do too. Because sometimes if you call in the middle of the night and people have their phones on silent, unless you call back 3 times in a row, they're not going to know, unless their phone is set up to accept calls from you. They may not know you call. So if you're in a bad situation and you call somebody and they don't answer, just don't automatically assume that was some sign that you need to continue what you're doing, because it's not. Their phone just could be on silent and you got to call back a couple of times to get a hold of somebody. So that's important. But it's going to be Veterans Day soon. It's going to be on Saturday. I hope everybody's got plans. I hope everybody gets out and enjoys the weather here in Virginia. It's been great. I think it's supposed to be 81 tomorrow. So it's going to be great weather. Try to get outside and enjoy it. With the change of the seasons, it gets kind of rough, this time of the year. But hey, I want to thank everybody tuning in. Sorry I wasn't overly motivated today. I just been kind of down, like I was saying, mentally and kind of, anxiety wise. And it's okay to have those days, right? You can't always be 1000% every single day. But you know what? I get on this podcast. I'm honest with my listeners, and I just let you guys know if sometimes things aren't going great, or sometimes I'm mentally down, or something was really wearing on me. And that was really wearing on me today, or the last couple of weeks, is trying to figure out why I didn't call and who I would have called. Yeah, that's right. It's okay not to be okay. But hey, I want to thanks everybody for tuning in. Just remember that you can catch the replay of my broadcast on Weeds Across America Radio. They play it at 8 p.m. on Fridays and 10 p.m. on Sundays. Super easy to find. Just download the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, or the Odyssey app. Search for Reese and click on follow. And you can follow all the great programs. They have so many great programs on there, so many great podcasts. I'm so thankful to be a part of them. Upper in the upper left-hand corner there, you can see the WAA QR code. You can scan on that. It's $5 for a wreath to ensure that those veterans that have gone on can have a wreath during the holidays, on their tombstone, which is a great, awesome program. But remember, also, you always want to be prepared. So then you have in the right hand, you got 4 Patriots food, that are now sponsoring. We got QR code just going across the bottom that you can save 10% on your order, because it's always good to be prepared, because you never know when a natural disaster or something's going to happen. And hey, Brian, I want to say good night and thanks for tuning in. One of these days I want to pull you into the podcast and put you on the spot maybe. But hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great, wonderful weekend. Just remember that this Friday's show is going to be a pre-recorded show that I did special for Veterans Day. I was super excited about that. Probably won't have a show next Wednesday because I'll be down at Hampton, Sydney for that speaking event, but I'll probably record it and then upload it so you guys can listen to that. We'll get one of the students down there to maybe run the film crew to film it or something. Who knows? It should be fun. But hey, you guys have a great weekend. Please take care of yourself. Remember, we are our brothers and sisters keepers out there. It is Veterans Day coming out, so hey, link up with a couple of your buddies and go out and go do something. Just don't sit around the house and stare at the 4 walls. Get out and meet up with some of your friends, whether it's online, whether it's on the phone, or where you guys meet up at a bar and have a drink or two, whether that drink's water, caffeine, alcohol, coffee, whatever it is that you drink. But hey, everybody, you guys take care out there and have a great weekend.
Thanks for watching and listening. And now a word from our sponsor, 4 Patriots. In a startling description, the UN food chief warned the world with the words, knocking on famine's door. He called what we're facing a perfect storm of a perfect storm. And he's not alone. Barron's published that a food shortage could be coming, even in the U.S. Farmers see it too. John Boyd Jr., a 4th-generation farmer, told Fox News that we're going to see empty food shelves in the coming months. That's why getting survival food is more important than ever now. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. It's not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years super survival food, hand-packed in a family-owned facility in the USA and giving jobs to over 200 Americans. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, for the next few days, listeners of the Veteran Trash Talk podcast will get 10% off their first order at 4patriots.com by using the code VTTGW. Go to 4patriots.com and use the code VTTGW to start your stockpile today.